Hey everyone, Brayden here coming to you with a breaking Disney news update as we have some big rumors to break for you guys talking about the future of operations at the Walt Disney World Resort. FastPass, I believe, is getting replaced. I also think Disney's about to start doing way more virtual queues at the resort. We have a lot to get into. I want to say right off the bat, usually when I break these types of stories to you guys, when I say these things are rumors, I usually say it rather facetiously where I know like there's a 99.9% chance that I am right, that it's going to happen. This situation is a little bit different than that though, because these are actual rumors. They could happen, they could not, so take it with a grain of salt, maybe an extra grain of salt. And I say that not because the sources are bad, the sources are excellent, they're extremely credible. The thing is, these are operational changes I believe Disney wants to make that are being debated in-house as we speak. These policy type decisions, they are the most prone to receiving revisions up until the moment that they are announced. But at the very least, this will give you guys an idea of what Disney's goals are and what their vision is for Walt Disney World in the new normal. Now, I know a lot of people don't like that phrase, the new normal. They say things should go back to the way that they were, and I absolutely agree. But in the case of Walt Disney World, while we are seeing all these health restrictions lifted, here's the first rumor for you guys. I expect us to get fireworks back quite soon. This summer, for sure. Happily Ever After specifically. It would be naive not to at least acknowledge the fact that this last year really has changed things in terms of how Disney looks at the parks, and it'll most definitely lead to a permanent change in how they are operated moving forward. I think that prior to last year, for the most part, Disney was at the behest of the guests. What can we do to get guests to our park? How can we get new guests? How can we recruit new people to come to Walt Disney World? Should we try different sorts of movie rides, different properties, new this, new that? Then when Disney reopened, they were forced to put in all these extremely restrictive policies, these hoops that guests had to jump through. And what they ended up finding is no matter how outlandish the request, making pass holders who pay for no blockout dates, resort guests that are spending in some cases tens of thousands of dollars to be there, they have to reserve parks in advance. They're barred from going to many parks on different days. No matter the severity of the policy that Disney was forced to implement, there was no shortage of guests willing to go jump through all those hoops and get back to the magic. And I think this changed the paradigm now, where it feels like guests are now at the behest of Disney, where it's been shown how committed people are to this product, where even if they complain online, even if they say, oh, Disney's lazy, Disney's cheap, whatever, they're still going to go, right? And I think this has opened up the floodgates where now Disney feels they can be much more choosy in terms of how they run the parks and who they let in. They can price stuff higher, they can restrict how many people are coming into the parks via this park pass reservation system. And Disney CEO Bob Chapek has voiced a similar sentiment recently, where he says the events of this past year have enabled them to do things that before they never thought that they could do. Things that were orthodoxy. He was speaking specifically in that case about discontinuing the annual pass system out in Disneyland. They've also been able to severely cut down on amenities they previously thought they couldn't without seeing negative effects. The parking trams and the Epcot monorail, they are still down. It's been almost a year now, and yet if you look at the reservation calendar for this month, for next month, for the month after, the parks are getting booked up. Disney sees this and it says to them, clearly these things aren't that much of a make or break, so why rush to bring them back? So now what I think Disney's going to start to do is take these mechanisms that they were forced to put in place over the past year, the park pass reservations, the virtual queues with Rise of the Resistance because of the operational things with that attraction, and they're going to use these systems they've built to achieve record new guest revenues with lower attendance. And the first gambit to this effect is something I personally believe Disney is working on right now, tentatively called the Lightning Pass. Since the parks closed last March, the FastPass Plus system has been down. FastPass Plus was a system where in advance of your stay, of your trip, you could book 3 ride reservations per ticket per day, where at those attractions you could utilize the FastPass line, which is much quicker than the standby line to gain access to the attraction. This service was free. It had its issues. I'd argue the guests are actually better off with no FastPass at all, just standby only, because the lack of multiple lines means that one line moves much faster. But the fact is, the psychological trick of I'm skipping the lines, that has led to a lot of guests asking me, when is this service going to come back? A lot of people love FastPass, and I'm not so sure it's coming back, because what I'm hearing is that what Disney wants to do is take those FastPass queues at Walt Disney World and rebrand them with the Genie and sell a Lightning Pass, which would be a very steep upcharge where you can skip the line at the big attractions that have this queuing system. How much of an upcharge, you ask? I've heard heard a huge range of prices recently, the range being from $100 to $300 per person per day. And again, this is just a rumor, but the idea here would be that guests who don't want to deal with the queues, they can splurge on this add-on, which would essentially double the price of your ticket for the day, maybe even more than doubling it. I guess we'll just have to see. And in exchange, you can do everything your heart desires with no waits in the park for the day. And as you're hearing this, probably even from the name alone, you can tell the system would be akin to the system that Universal has, the Express Pass. So that's the deal with a potential FastPass system replacement I believe Disney is considering as we speak. And those per person prices, they might be shocking to some of you, but this is what I'm talking about. Disney knows that they can price people out. They can be choosy with who they let into the park by both having limits on park availability with the reservation system at the park level, which Bob Chapek just recently confirmed is staying for now. And at the same time, they're also going to offer all these add-ons, things like this, which dramatically increase per guest spending, meaning Disney will have higher guest revenues than ever before overall, despite perhaps not having the same attendance as before by design. Call me crazy, say I made this up. This is what I believe Disney is doing. I will note there has been a glitch on Disney's website where a prompt is popping up for some hotel guests telling them to book their fast passes. It doesn't actually lead anywhere, like the system's blocked off right now, but maybe I'm wrong and maybe they're getting ready to bring back the old system. But I want you guys to know about this new system I believe Disney is considering. Right now, I think it's still a subject of internal debate, so we'll have to see what actually comes of this. And I do want to say I'm not necessarily opposed to Disney doing a paid FastPass service like this. It should probably be cheaper, but I almost think the more expensive they make it, the better it is for us normal guests, because if it's very pricey where very few people use it, not only is that better for them, but also our standby line will continue to move at comparable speeds to what we've seen this past year, which would be awesome. I love that. I wouldn't use this new Lightning Pass system often, but the idea that anytime, you're standing in a line and you're just like, you know what, I'm just not having this today, and you could hand Disney 100 and just start skipping the lines for the day at all the attractions, that's kind of cool. I kind of like that more than, way in advance, 90 days in advance, trying to get my FastPass Plus reservations for big e-ticket rides, for an exact time of day. And oftentimes you'd go on there and a lot of the big e-ticket stuff that's in the FastPass system, it would already be gone. The weirdest thing about this rumor to me isn't the Lightning Pass itself, it's actually the branding. The branding I mentioned with the genie. It was only weeks ago that I was hearing this service was being tentatively called the Lightning Lane. And the idea here, the gimmick was that they would paint some aspect of the FastPass queue blue or something like that. And the idea was the genie is making your wishes come true and you follow this bolt of lightning right to the front of the ride. There's no lines anywhere. You just get right on. And to me, this branding decision is just weird because we already know the genie is Disney's mascot for their new in-app helper. To me, when I think of Lightning Lane, I think of Lightning McQueen. Let me know what you guys think. The more recent name I heard, Lightning Pass, obviously it sounds a whole lot like the Express Pass that Universal has, which operates in a very similar way, and I don't think that's a coincidence. So I'll keep my ear to the ground on this situation. I think the implementation of Disney's new normal operating procedures could be quite quick, because as I said, with expecting fireworks, Happily Ever After specifically, to return this summer, I think over the course of the next month or so, we are going to see a lot of things at Walt Disney World go back to normal. The college program is starting to return, so we'll see services that have been offline the last year finally start to come back online. Universal just lifted their indoor mask rules, and lately Disney's just been a few days behind Universal with these various policy changes. And as things return to normal, Disney will want to get that new standard operating procedure at the parks moving and be in really good shape by the time the 50th rolls around, which Disney just released their first TV commercial for as part of the release of the Disney Cruella film. Now I want to talk about the other operational change I think is on the way, and this one I think is terrible. Disney, please do not do this. What I believe Disney is considering is actually dramatically expanding the number of virtual queues at the parks, where lots of e-ticket rides with big standby lines, they're just gonna start to have virtual queuing systems. Think of rides like the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, for example. And at first, especially the tech savvy, they might say, what's the problem with this? I can go in the app, get in a virtual line, and then I don't have to stand there. I can go do whatever I want while I wait. That sounds awesome. That's so cool. Those people should consider the implications of of this change. This would be the biggest change Disney has ever made in how they operate the parks, at least since when they used to have the ticket books. When we talk about park capacity, how many people can be in any one of Disney's parks at any given time, that means queues and rides. And it turns out at any given time, a large portion of the guest capacity in a park is being eaten up by people standing in the queues. If Disney starts eliminating lots of queues and makes them virtual instead, I'm sure by now you can figure out what's going to happen. The total number of people that can be in each of the parks is going to drop. And this could explain why Disney could be considering keeping the park pass reservation system. Before it might have been for health reasons, that's why they were restricting capacity with distancing and things like that. Now there might be a secondary use case here where perhaps instead of going back to just letting everyone in, first come, first serve, they might want to try maintaining reduced capacity to some extent for the purposes of doing this. And you may be wondering, what does this do for Disney? Why do they like virtual queues? This is the white whale that Disney's been chasing since they first invented FastPass. The whole idea, the theory is that the less time that a guest is spending in line, the more time that they're spending out and about in the park buying merchandise and buying food. The idea is that the guest spend goes up. The issue with this is this theory has never been proven to be true. It wasn't true of the original FastPass. It also didn't turn out to be true with My Magic Plus. So the theory with having a bunch of virtual queues is all the people standing in line, let's say at Slinky, a big ride in Toy Story Land, instead they're going to be in a virtual queue on their phone, and physically they're just going to be walking around the park, right? Buying Pop-Tarts at Woody's Lunchbox, looking at Toy Story Land merchandise, going over to Galaxy's Edge to get a Ronto wrap. You see the idea here? So now you can see why Disney has been phasing out magic bands in favor of you using your phone at the touch points. The phone is what you're going to need to ride rides moving forward if they end up expanding the virtual queuing system. If this plan ends up happening, and to be clear, it is an if, a way to think about it is the standby will sort of become FastPass. The objective of FastPass, the reason it's free, is it's theoretically benefiting Disney by keeping you out of lines, where in exchange for keeping you out of lines, you're spending more money and increasing their guest revenues. That's sort of the exchange there. That mechanism is what the virtual queues tab in the My Disney Experience app would end up taking up the mantle of. And then the former FastPass line, that becomes the upcharge add-on line, something like the Express Pass in Universal or the Max Pass in Disneyland, whatever pay to skip the line feature from the other parks you want to compare this rumored Lightning Pass system to. And this is what I believe Disney's master plan is to increase guest revenues at the parks. It's an approach where Disney tries to restrict crowds via the Park Pass mechanism, keeping capacity slightly lower than normal to test out this expanded virtual queuing system. And at the same time, Disney offers a new add-on as well as increases prices across the board on everything, ensuring that the increased per guest revenue makes up for any revenues they could possibly be missing out on by not doing a more traditional mixed approach where they focus on both increasing attendance and increasing per guest revenue. It seems like what they want to do is focus more on the per guest revenue aspect and really try to get people with the most money to spend the most money they possibly can, rather than just trying to get a lot of people in the parks in general. It's a pretty cynical yet pretty smart approach in my mind. It's something that'll possibly work. Again, take all this with a grain of salt. It's rumors, it's hearsay, but this I do believe is what could be on the table as we continue to see everything return to normal operation at Walt Disney World. My hope is, as what often happens with the Disney parks, they have these wild plans, these pie in the sky ideas, which are repeatedly revised, and there's budget cuts and all sorts of things, and eventually it just gets to the point where we're basically back to how things were before the lockdown, right? Maybe they shelve this, Lightning Pass thing, and they're just like, let's just bring FastPass back for now and see what happens, and then the system ends up staying forever. Maybe per guest revenues this quarter, right now Disney's increasing capacity in the parks, maybe the per guest revenue they're seeing is actually going down this quarter. That's a possibility. I have no source on that. I'm just theorizing this could be the case. If that was the case and they see per guest revenues falling, that might force them to focus on the more traditional increased attendance approach. And that, combined with the outcry from fans that we're seeing insofar as the Park Pass reservation system is concerned, that could lead to its removal. And at that point, that would be the dream. Everything is back to normal, exactly as it was before. The thing is, this company under Chapek, they have not been shy. They've really been going for it this past year, making some sweeping structural changes in both how the company itself operates and how their products themselves operate. So in the event that they do end up going this route, now you will not be caught by surprise. I really want to be wrong, because if all this comes together as I've just just laid it out here, which is definitely possible. I feel it's really an endgame type scenario for the parks as Walt Disney saw them. Reduced capacity with a reservation system where you can't go spur of the moment, combined with price increases, will make the parks an elite experience. And in many ways, you could argue it has already reached that level. It's already become that. But this would definitely be the final blow to the way things used to be, where the parks were more for normal people. Obviously, we know that is not Disney's focus. Of course, we know Disney's primary focus is the big money, and this is sort of, just the nature of the system that we live in. If you'd like to see more breaking rumors and investigative reporting like this in the future, be sure to subscribe with those notifications on. We'll keep you up to date on what is happening. Thankfully, it seems we're finally seeing work pick back up at the Tron coaster in the Magic Kingdom, so I might go over there soon and check out the latest with that. Very exciting there, and we'll see what happens with that Lightning Pass idea and the possibility of Disney, in fact, not getting rid of virtual queues or just maintaining the ones they have, but instead perhaps increasing the number of virtual queues they have at the Walt Disney World Resort. So that's what's going on. Thank you all so much for watching. From the Mickey Mouse Magic Studio, this is Brayden. I'll talk to you soon. Have a magical day.